All right, so continuing on with our discussion of fire and arson, some things to think about from a first responder standpoint. You show up on scene, a lot of you will start off your careers as, patrol officers out there on patrol. And so, before the fire department arrives, you will be on scene first. So take a look. Do you see folks with flash burns? Somebody who's escaped their house and they have just some slight burns on their hands, on their forearms, their face. This gentleman here has the flash burns on his legs. Those are his socks sitting over there. So he's barefoot. This is his legs. And so what happens is when like most people pour gasoline on the ground, you pour a bunch of gasoline on the ground and you light a match to it, you get this, quick flash, this small little explosion. And then the fire, recedes down and is just right there by the gasoline. And that first vapor flash is hot enough to give you like a first-degree burn, like a really bad sunburn, anywhere that's not protected by clothing. So, his socks and his blue jeans were just enough to keep his skin safe there, thermal protection. But anything that actually had flame touch it for a quick second, you end up there with that sunburn look, and you can see his arm even has it, where he was going down with the match, and woof, the flame was around his arm and around his legs. Think about what it is you wear when you're sleeping, and take a look at this family in the middle of the night, and they're standing outside their house, and the kids have snow boots on, and they have jackets and hats and mittens, and they're all dressed for the weather. Most families, report that they dashed out of the house, barely escaping kind of statements. So they're probably going to be shoeless. They're probably not going to have jackets. They maybe got lucky and were able to snag jackets as they were coming out of the house, but they're not going to have, boots and hats and mittens and all that stuff on typically. But when you have a family intentionally burning down their house for the insurance check, and you think about the fact that, they're going to go in and make sure their kids are comfortable and dress them up and everything. Cars parked outside. Some insurance policies don't cover vehicles. And some vehicle insurance policies don't cover a car while it's parked, only if it's in motion. So, if you got a family with a discount insurance policy, they have to, take the car out of the garage. Sometimes what also happens is, the car's out of the garage and you take a peek in the windows of the car and you notice that, wait a second, you've got portrait albums in there, you've got baby books in there, you've got the stuff that the insurance can't replace, things, pictures and artwork that might be stashed away inside the car. That's interesting. In the wintertime here in Wisconsin, we have the fire hydrants are supposed to be dug out by, the water department, the local Boy Scouts, whoever is digging out your fire hydrants. And if you notice that the fire hydrant closest to the scene is covered over with snow, there's kind of a big indicator too. If you notice that things are blocking doors, the firefighters are having a hard time getting access to the building, that could be an indicator. Anything to slow a fire response down, that means more burn damage. So what we want to be doing here is looking for anything that's kind of unusual, like people leaving the scene. Usually folks are drawn to fires. They want to come out and look and, record it. So when I get there as an investigator, what I'm looking for then is, odd behavior, sometimes multiple set points. People, know that, fire is hard to start sometimes. You think that you can start it, but it might not go, especially if you don't want to be pouring a whole bunch of gasoline in the house. So you end up with maybe starting a fire in the bedroom and starting a fire out in the kitchen, and the hope being, well, one of the two should take off, and then my house will burn down. And better yet, if both of them take off, well, my house will burn down just that much more. So multiple set points, some kind of device, some sort of IED or something that has been placed in the house or has been created by the homeowner or the business owner, whatever. Any kind of trail showing fuels or accelerants, gasoline, kerosene, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When things are out of place or missing, you look around and you've got hooks on the walls, but there's no artwork there. I went into a house once that the picture frames were all there, but there were no pictures in the picture frames. That they had taken all the stuff out of the frames because they knew they could get new frames, but they couldn't replace some old family pictures where there was no, digital files for them anymore, and there were no negatives anymore, that these sentimental photos could not be replaced. So they had these picture frames that were melted and destroyed, but there was no image in them. So things that are missing, things that just aren't right, furniture that's pushed over to the side, and you don't have a room set up properly. because what they did was they got all the furniture to one side of the room to create a fuel package to make sure that the house burned, or that the fire in the house got bigger, faster, quicker. That question always comes into play then. Do we need a search warrant to begin our investigation when we get into CSI mode? Well, that's a hard one. The Supreme Court has said time and time again that the fire department, because remember, the Fourth Amendment protects you from the government, not from the police. Our Constitution was written at a time before police departments existed. And a fire department is a government organization. So the Supreme Court has said time and time again, the fire department is allowed to go into a structure and put out the fire without the family's consent because it's a public safety issue. It's an emergency, exigent circumstance. Now, the fire department also has a duty to investigate all fires to try and prevent future fires. So if we've got, defective electronics, if we've got, products that need to be recalled. So it is in the public safety emergency exigent circumstance realm that, the fire department can go in, put the fire out, and figure out why the fire started for public safety reasons. That being said, as we switch from public safety into law enforcement, there's kind of this gray area. I always ask permission. Fire department's in there, they're doing their thing. As a homeowner, as a business owner, is it okay for me to go in there also and do my CSI work and do my investigation? Pretty much everybody always says yes. If they say no, then yes, you'll have to get a warrant. Problem sometimes is, where you don't have enough evidence for probable cause to get a warrant, because it's a chicken and the egg game. I don't have any evidence to prove it's arson because the homeowner won't let me in, and I can't get any evidence till I go in. So how do I do this? Well, we actually have a system where we can get an inspection warrant, because you do have a structure that is damaged, and there's some question as to whether or not we can safely allow people to go back into that structure. So we can get an inspection warrant. We can then do our inspection of the structure, and as we're inspecting it, the inspection warrant does not allow us to collect evidence. We can take photos though, and so as we're inspecting it, if we see burn patterns that tell us something nefarious has happened, well, then that gives us the ability to go back to the judge and ask it to be amended to a search warrant and now start collecting our evidence. But the best thing to do is just ask permission. Can I go in and search your house? Have the person say yes. Get it in writing these days is always important too, because if they recant later on and say, oh, I told the officer no, or I didn't feel like the officer really was asking me a question. Hey, here's the form you signed. There's your signature, right? Here's this paragraph of text saying I give permission. And we have those permission forms all the time. All right, so I'm going to cut this video at this point, and in part 3 we'll actually get into evidence collection then.